us Bills fans, the moment we will always remember will be the agonizing ending.
Coming up on the top 5 reasons you can't blame.
It's field goal to win the game. It doesn't get any better than that unless you're Scott Norwood.
I knew I'd hit a solid kick through there. Unfortunately, you don't get a second chance.
No good. Wide right.
Scott Norwood's a good player, but whenever that name comes up, there's only one thing attached to it. He missed a field goal in the Super Bowl.
That ball is on the line. Get 5 up there. Michigan can't take a timeout.
Hi, I'm Brian Kenny, and welcome to ESPN Classic's Top 5 Reasons You Can't Blame, a series that takes a fresh look at sports figures remembered largely for their mistakes, controversial moments, or questionable decisions. In 1991, the Giants met the Bills in Super Bowl 25. Down to New York 20-19, Buffalo kicker Scott Norwood missed a 47-yard field goal with 4 seconds left, and in that instant entered the National Memory Bank as the man responsible for Buffalo losing its first of 4 consecutive Super Bowls. Now, before we take up the defense of Norwood, let's look at the evidence against him.
The Bills, while they had some success in the AFL years in the 1960s, always seemed on the edge of things, but never putting it over the top.
For more than 3 decades, dyed-in-the-wool Bills fans have been saying maybe next year.
Our day is coming, and we're going to hang in there with each other, hold on to each other, embrace each other. There's a better day ahead.
Along came Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and Bruce Smith, and they just kind of ignited that whole city.
Kelly to throw, and it is caught for the touchdown!
This team had this dynamic offense. They played very solid defense, and their special teams were great.
You roll out Jim Kelly, Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, Cornelius Bennett, we'd walk out of the tunnel, we're going to win, and we'd look across the field, and they knew it too.
In 1990, the Bills' offense was rolling, generating 27 points a game, tops in the NFL. Their 13-3 record was the best in the AFC.
Home run ball, this on target to James Lofton, and he goes in.
Our offense was so talented. We had so many people on there that could make a play at any time.
Andre Reed, touchdown!
Thurman Thomas eating him up on that play.
The Bills continued to roll through the playoffs, racking up 95 points in 2 games, including a 51-3 blowout of the Raiders for the AFC title.
I remember Howie Long saying, no huddle. I mean, we could handle this. And when the game began, the Raiders had no clue what was coming at them.
He has a touchdown! Touchdown! Buffalo!
I saw Al Davis in the locker room after the game, and he looked as white as a ghost. No one thought anybody could stop this Bills offense.
Hey, baby, are y'all convinced now?
The Buffalo Bills continue to be the overwhelming favorite in Super Bowl 25. The betting line started out at 5. It's now up to 6.5 points.
The Bills would face the stingiest defense in the NFL. The New York Giants had given up an average of 13 points a game during the regular season and had played Buffalo tough, losing 17-13 in mid-December.
It was pretty classic matchup of 2 different schools of thought. If you like points and you like a sort of endless 2-minute offense, and you like the Buffalo Bills.
It's tipped and it's caught by Lofton.
If you wanted defense and sock them in the mouth, and that's the way Bill Parcells wanted to play.
Tighten up your shoes, here they come.
The game was about as perfect a Super Bowl game as you could have.
And Donnie Smith takes it into the end zone. Austin throws, touchdown!
No turnovers, classic struggle back and forth.
And Thurman breaking tackles, touchdown Buffalo. New York once again has the lead.
It seemed right that it was going to come down to a final drive.
Trailing by a point, the Bills took over on their own 10 with a little more than 2 minutes remaining.
We had the drive at the end of the game when we needed to have it that put us in position at least to try to win it.
Thurman Thomas out to the 40, a first down.
We just felt like, hey, let's get it into field goal range. Scott Norwood has been kicking field goals for us in the last couple of years.
All my job was to get inside the 30-yard line, because Scott told me
there's no doubt, you know, I can make it. I'm good for 50.
Thurman Thomas takes it to the 30.
Scott Norwood told me before that game he hoped it came down to his kick. And we had a headline that said Norwood hopes it's up to him.
They have to send him in here. They can't take a chance and run another play.
I was hoping direly to be able to get in there and try to kick a game winner.
No good. Wide right.
Usually his ball goes right to left like a golf shot, and it didn't hook. The rest was history.
The players were like, oh, God. You know, they were just almost in tears at that point.
How much emotion can you stand?
It was just devastating. I've never been around a locker room that was more broken-hearted after that kick went wide.
There's no guarantees. You know, what I do, I did the best I could.
Bottom line is when the game's on the line, you missed it wide and Buffalo Bills lost.
You can blame Scott Norwood for missing that kick because that was his only job, to make field goals in that exact moment. That's why you have a kicker on the team.
There's a lot of people out there that, you know, wanted to grab Scott Norwood by his throat, a bunch of our offensive linemen.
Scott Norwood came up to me at the Washington National Reagan Airport and said, Mr. Russert, I want to introduce myself. I'm Scott Norwood. I said, Scott, I know who you are. I think about you every night.
You've just seen why Scott Norwood has become the butt of countless jokes. But before we count down the top 5 reasons you can't blame Norwood for the Bills' loss, here are a few points in his favor. We call them the best of the rest. Matt Barr. After making 5 field goals in the Giants' 15-13 win over San Francisco in the NFC Championship game, he kicked 2 more in the Super Bowl, including the game winner. But from the start of the contest, Barr showed another dimension to his talent.
Barr's kick taken up at the 13-yard line.
You don't want to give up 6 points on the opening kickoff. How embarrassing.
Tackled by Barr.
We had 2 returns where Matt made the tackle. If they have any other kicker in the league, they get blown out in that Super Bowl. Now it's over, I can kind of tip my hat to him, but at that time, I want to kick him in the crotch.
Our other best of the rest, Buffalo overconfidence. After their demolition of the Raiders, the Bills may have set their sights more on the prize than the opponent.
They were partying during the week. Champagne and going to hotels and, you know, partying and drinking and whatnot.
For most of this week, we've seen quite a few members of the Buffalo Bills enjoying the Tampa nightlife.
I sensed that maybe their focus wasn't what it should be before Super Bowl.
I remember going to media day and talking to Jim Kelly, Bruce Smith. They were talking like this was going to be the start of their dynasty.
Yeah, we're greedy.
Greed is good.
We're greedy, yeah. There's arrogance, cockiness, and confidence. We were all 3. We just didn't feel like we'd be stopped.
When we return to the top 5 reasons you can't blame Scott Norwood for the Bills losing Super Bowl 25, we'll see how this OJ squeezed Buffalo.
Norwood, an old man, beat your Buffalo Bills. That's why you shouldn't be blamed.
We're presenting the top 5 reasons you can't blame Scott Norwood for the Bills losing Super Bowl 25. Welcome back. You've seen and heard the evidence and a few reasons that didn't make our top 5. Without any further ado, here's reason number 5. Otis O.J. Anderson, the oldest running back in the NFL, was ready to perform on the game's biggest stage.
Going into the game, you knew who O.J. Anderson was, but I don't think we were 100% concerned with him beating us running the football.
In 1990, Anderson shared the rushing duty with rookie Rodney Hampton. But when Hampton went down with a season-ending injury in the playoffs, the 225-pound veteran carried the load in the Super Bowl.
Otis was the perfect back for that game. He was a power back in a power game, and he came through with the tough yardage that they needed.
Now that's the kind of movement that a lot of people weren't sure that Otis Anderson still was capable of at this age.
He punished people. I mean, patented Otis Anderson, he punished people.
Anderson's fire within flared to the surface during a Giants drive in the 3rd quarter.
34 years old, baggy pants, breaks to the left.
Anderson into Buffalo territory.
And then he sees the defensive back.
I kind of wind up the old forearm haymaker, and I had bad intention.
Look at Otis Anderson throw the uppercut.
It's like one of them Escalades hitting a Volkswagen. Size gonna always win that battle.
Anderson's 21 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown earned him MVP honors.
Norwood, I am the primary reason why you shouldn't be blamed. An old man beat your Buffalo Bills.
One reason down, 4 to go. Here's reason number 4. Jeff Hostetler. The Giants' backup quarterback took command after Phil Simms was knocked out for the season by the Bills in mid-December.
At that time, I was like, who is he? And it's like Jeff Hostetler. I'm like, sweet, I don't know him. You know, he can't be that good.
Under the gutsy Hostetler, the Giants went 4-0, including 2 playoff wins on their way to the Super Bowl in Tampa.
I haven't gotten any respect from anything else, so what's new?
Against the Bills, Hostetler completed 20 of 32 passes for 222 yards and 1 touchdown. And while moving the chains, he survived some ferocious hits.
I can remember one play in particular where Leon Seals just engulfed him. And you're like, there's no way he's going to get up.
Leon Seals really decked him.
I felt like maybe I was a couple inches thick. Couldn't breathe. And I was trying to get a gasp of air.
He came over to the sideline, and Ronnie Barnes broke over. I don't know if you ever smelled those ammonia salts, but you can only, from here, you can't take it. And he took one up and put it right under Hostetler's nose and told him to take a deep breath. Hostetler went, and nothing happened.
They were telling me to breathe deep, and I was breathing real deep. And I remember their faces.
I was like, oh my God, if he didn't feel that, he's not in his right mind.
Throughout the intense shelling, Hostetler took care of the football. In the second quarter, with the Giants trailing 10-3, after tripping over Anderson's foot, he showed poise and tenacity as he kept the football and the game in his grasp.
Hostetler under heat, sacked for the safety. Bruce Smith.
Bruce Smith latched out at his hand, tried to shake the ball free.
He's got Hostetler's wrist.
I felt a big old hand on my wrist and did everything I could to bring the ball back in.
Look at him pull the ball into his chest.
Had that play turned out to be a touchdown, that would have been a 17-3 Buffalo lead. No team in Super Bowl history has ever lost a game in which it led by 14 or more points. It was probably the best safety in Super Bowl history.
When we return, we'll continue our countdown of the top 5 reasons you can't blame Scott Norwood for the Bills losing Super Bowl 25. Here's a hint.
Giant football! Giant football!
It still kills me that we only had the ball 19 minutes.
We're counting down the top 5 reasons you can't blame Scott Norwood for the Bills losing Super Bowl 25. Welcome back. Now that you've had time to digest our first 2 reasons, here's more food for thought. Reason number 3. Buffalo's defense. The unit, led by Pro Bowlers Bruce Smith, Cornelius Bennett, Darryl Talley, and Shane Conlon, tired as the Giants controlled the ball for a Super Bowl record 40 minutes and 33 seconds.
If you want to put a blame on this game, put it on the Bills' defense. The other team shoves it down your throat for 40 minutes with the running back who's like 100 years old. Make a stop on 3rd down and get your offense on the field.
With a 12-3 lead, Buffalo's defense gave up an 87-yard drive at the end of the first half.
Touchdown, Stephen Baker.
After the Giants received the kickoff to start the second half, Buffalo's star-studded defense couldn't halt their grinding progress downfield. A Super Bowl record 9 minutes, 29 seconds elapsed. Perhaps the most demoralizing play came on a 3rd and 13 at the Bills' 32.
Hostetler throwing, caught by Ingram. He has to get to the 19 for a first down, and he does.
He catches that pass. You think, oh, no way he's getting the first down. Then he breaks one tackle. He ducks under another guy, sidesteps another guy, gets hit by another guy, spins, lunges, and gets the first down.
You can see the physical exhaustion from our guys who were trying to make those tackles.
You could look at them after that 9-minute drive and know that their defense was done.
Touchdown, Anderson.
The most telling measure of the ineffectiveness of the defense was the fact that the halftime entertainment got more airtime than Buffalo's offense.
The New Kids on the Block.
The New Kids on the Block in their halftime show was out there more than Jim and Thurman in the third quarter.
There was a period of time, probably over an hour, hour and a half, that we weren't even on the field.
Buffalo's defense let the Giants convert 9 of 16 third downs. And after the Bills took a 19-17 lead on the first play of the fourth quarter, they allowed New York to march 74 yards in 13 plays to set up Matt Barr's go-ahead field goal.
Collectively, that front seven was inept in that game. They just got manhandled by the Giant offensive line. That's really where their blame should be.
I had opportunities to make plays that I didn't make. And everybody to a man has to look at themselves and say, hey, I didn't make the play at that time. So guess what? A little of this is on me.
Have we begun to change your mind yet? If not, take a look at reason number 2. Coaching. Marv Levy's crew was simply outgunned by the Giants' brain trust.
I mean, you think about that staff that Bill Parcells had. He had Bill Belichick on his staff. He had Charlie Weiss. He had Romeo Cornell. He had Tom Coughlin on that staff.
To contain Buffalo's powerful offense, Giants defensive coordinator Bill Belichick devised a game plan of surprise and intimidation. New York set up with only 2 defensive linemen.
They threw a totally different defense at us that we had never seen. I had Lawrence Taylor lining up on me halftime. I know he's supposed to be playing out there somewhere, you know.
One of the defining moments for the Giants that week was Bill Belichick walking into the defensive meeting and telling the players, if Thurman Thomas gets more than 100 yards rushing, we're going to win the game. Players look at each other. They thought Belichick had lost his mind.
We wanted to stop what they were doing best, and that was throwing the ball, and so we wanted to try to disrupt the throwing lanes and disrupt the receivers.
The big-time hit on Al Edwards.
Hit them and hit them hard. Let them catch the ball, because they are going to be successful on some plays. But when they do catch it, then we're going to come and light their butts up.
And over the middle, the catch is made by Reed. Whoa! Andre Reed hit by Guyton.
Back-to-back drops for Reed. That was the hardest I ever got hit. Every time I even had my hands on the ball, there was a guy hitting me, and then there was another guy hitting me. It just seemed like there was more than 11 guys on the field for them.
With the Bills converting 1 of 8 on third down and scoring 3 times in 11 possessions, the game played out just as Belichick and head coach Bill Parcells had written the script.
Our whole philosophy going into it was to keep the clock moving, keep the ball out of their hands.
If you look at each time we snapped the ball, we took the clock down to almost 1 or 2 seconds before we snapped the ball.
Trailing by a point with less than 3 minutes left in the game, the Bills stopped Jeff Hostetler on third down. Then, with the clock moving, mental paralysis set in on Buffalo's sideline.
The Bills play right into their hands by not calling a quick timeout. They let the clock tick and tick and tick. 13 seconds tick off before the Bills call a timeout. A lot of blame's got to be shared by the Bills coaching staff for letting those valuable seconds tick away.
If there wasn't such indecision about that, maybe they get another play or 2 off and get that ball closer for Norwood.
When we return to the top 5 reasons you can't blame Scott Norwood for the Bills losing Super Bowl 25, we present our top reason.
The pressure of the season ending on 1 kick was not on Anna Vinatieri like it was on Scott Norwood.
We're counting down the top 5 reasons you can't blame Scott Norwood for the Bills losing Super Bowl 25. Here's what we covered. Number 5, Otis O.J. Anderson. Number 4, Jeff Hostetler. Number 3, Buffalo's defense. Number 2, coaching. Welcome back to the top 5 reasons you can't blame Scott Norwood for the Bills losing Super Bowl 25. We've reached the end of our countdown. Here it is. Reason number 1. 47 yards on grass? That is no sure thing. In fact, from 1986 to 1990, NFL kickers had missed more than half their attempts on grass from 47 yards.
When you're talking about a 47-yard field goal on grass to win the Super Bowl, you're not talking about something that's very easy to do.
Grass has ruts in it. There'll be slight ripples through the field. The field is never as pristine and flat as what artificial turf would be, on a grass field with the Super Bowl in the balance, where you're either going to win or lose the game. That adds yet another measure of tremendous pressure.
Only 3 Super Bowls have been won in the final seconds by field goals. Each broke a tie.
You go back to Jim O'Brien making the kick for the Colts against the Cowboys. If he misses it, the game goes into overtime.
Adam Vinatieri, for all his greatness, he never was in a Scott Norwood moment. Because in a Norwood moment, you don't have the safety net of overtime.
No kickers probably felt the pressure of a kick of that magnitude.
In his 6 years as a pro, Norwood, whose home field was AstroTurf, had connected on 87% of his kicks from inside the 40.
Scott, was an awesome kicker just to be able to play under the conditions he played in, just trying to make 25, 30-yard field goals in the wind up in Buffalo.
That's it. Kick is good, and the Bills are champions of the AFC East.
He was extremely accurate at, let's say, 35 yards and in. The longer it was, he lost his accuracy.
Scott Norwood had the shortest average made field goal in the AFC. And what that means is that if you average all the makes that he had, he basically had the weakest leg.
On grass fields in his career, 1 for 5 from 40 yards plus.
Norwood's lone three-pointer on grass beyond 40 was from the 41.
Norwood had missed a 42-yard attempt in a game at Cleveland, a grass field, in November of 1990.
That one never had a chance.
Prior to that, he hadn't even attempted a field goal of 40 or more yards on a grass field since 1988.
It is no good.
It was not something that he had a history of success at.
Scott Norwood didn't have the confidence that you need to have to attempt a field goal like that. You need to feel like you've done it before many, many times.
Bill Buckner had fielded some ground balls behind first base in his career, and Bill Mazeroski had hit some home runs. Scott Norwood had never kicked a field goal this long on a grass field.
He was trying something that he had never done before under perhaps the most pressure that you can ever have in all the sports.
You can't blame him for asking him to do something that he had never done before.
Well, there you have the top 5 reasons Scott Norwood shouldn't bear the full burden of the Bills' devastating loss in Super Bowl 25. Hopefully, we've given you a new way to look at one of the most exciting Super Bowls ever played. I'm Brian Kenny. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I'm dedicating next season to the fans of Buffalo.